Good afternoon and welcome back to Aortic 2021. Before we start this session, I would like to thank our sponsors, without whom the Aortic Conference would not be possible, virtual or otherwise. Firstly, our diamond sponsor, the National Cancer Institute, our silver sponsors, Electa, Novartis, Takeda, and Varian Medical Systems, and our bronze sponsors, the American Cancer Society, Beckman Coulter, Bristol Myers Squibb Foundation, Cepheid, and IGCS, and everyone else who supported and who's worked hard to make this aortic conference a reality. So, without further ado, we'll launch into the next session, which is brought to you by Bristol Myers Squibb Foundation, and it's on enhancing sub-Saharan cancer care systems for targeted therapy, one demonstration at a time. So over to Pangasile Mchali and Natanya Jennings to start the program. Thank you.
Good morning and good evening wherever you are. I am Pangasile Mchali. I'm the director of the Bristol Myers Squibb Foundation, and I will be chairing this session, assisted by my able colleague, Natanya. Over to you, Natanya, to introduce yourself.
Yes, good day, everyone. My name is Natanya Jennings, and I am the medical lead for the Global Health Equity Platform within Bristol Myers Squibb, and I'm excited to be here as well.
Thank you very much. We are also excited to be here after we actually joined formally the partnership with IOTIC in the previous conference that was in Mozambique. And our sole aim was to bring to the agenda of IOTIC a special focus on lung cancer. I am meeting you and greeting you all from Kimberley in South Africa, and Natanya is in Houston, USA. Next slide, please. Really, when we joined IOTIC in about 2 years ago, we basically wanted to bring to the fore the agenda and the discussion on lung cancer, because in 2016 we embarked on a journey to find out more about lung cancer in our setting in the countries where we partner. Next slide, please. And here, just to talk to all of us, I just want to highlight the brief learnings and the outcomes and the outputs that we've had on the multinational lung cancer control program, which officially started with the first grants in 2017. And what we are presenting here is obviously the work that we've been tracking up until a couple of months back. When we approached oncologists in Kenya, Tanzania, and South Africa, and we asked them about lung cancer, they really said, we do not see that much lung cancer in our setting. However, we embarked on making sure that we find the cases, that we link them to care, that we stage them, but our ultimate goal was really that we find them early. And what we will be sharing with you is also that we knew that we had to build capacity. As you can see, that we've had many healthcare providers that have been trained. We've had pulmonologists that have also, pulmonology fellows that have gone through the program. We've had PhD students and 8 master students that have all contributed to the body of knowledge about lung cancer in our settings. We've had 12 articles that have been published, and we've got joint publications that will come from the work that has been done in South Africa, Tanzania, Eswatini, Kenya, and of late, we are joined by Ethiopia and Lesotho. And with that, I really don't want to expand more, because I think the next presenters will be sharing with us what they have done, what they have learned, but most importantly, what we've had to do together collaboratively as building blocks to improve cancer care so that our patients, the African populations, can also have access to life-saving targeted therapy. Over to you, Natanya. Thank you.
Thank you, Pangasile, for that excellent intro and also speaking to the MLCC program. So up next, we'll have a recorded clip from the Coalition in Implementation Research for Global Oncology. And if we could get that clip rolling, that'd be great.
Solutions for the challenges we face in Africa in dealing with the growing cancer burden are largely available from the United States and Europe, where decades of research and clinical care have generated and continue to generate protocols for treatment. The Coalition for Implementation Research in Global Oncology, or CIRGO, is a collection of implementers and funders working together to identify gaps in implementation across the cancer continuum and fund projects in Africa that address those gaps. Through gathered and shared data from within and outside of CIRGO projects, vetted feasible solutions for cancer in Africa are possible.
The Max Foundation delivers more than 10 million daily doses of oral cancer medicines per year to treat 30,000 individual patients at 200 hospitals in 70 countries. But this did not happen overnight. We made mistakes and learned from them. For example, at the beginning, we assumed that if we send drug to a physician for a patient, they would let us know with time that the patient was going to continue treatment and needed resupply. Yet in reality, they only let us know once they were out of supply, and this led to unnecessary treatment interruptions and worse clinical outcomes. Now we can ensure adequate supply on site for each patient by developing a timely reapproval request, tracking inventory on site, and obtaining drug dispensation logs from the sites. We must include this implementation science research approach if we want to remain successful.
Through data collection from cancer research partnerships, we can begin to understand the African cancer landscape, think about what we know and what we don't know, with the latter being those gaps in knowledge that are best informed by implementation research. Continuously gathering and integrating this data, working with international and local funders, researchers and clinicians can help us fill old gaps and identify new areas. Having a roadmap for this data is great, but it must be complemented by funding to do the needed research, as well as local and global partnerships to provide resources and expertise equitably. Joint or collaborative action to fill research gap areas can really help funding investments stretch further and ultimately benefit patients in Africa.
I've spent my career providing cancer care in the US. We worry a lot about the quality of care and the outcomes of our patients. But it's even more important in the context of a place like Rwanda or Botswana or Haiti. The worst mistake that we can make is to provide cancer care and not understand what we're accomplishing, what the remaining gaps in care are, and how our patients are doing. If we don't do that, then we really don't know whether we're succeeding in our work or not. Unless you have data, you can't evaluate the quality of your care, the toxicities the patients have experienced and how they've managed that, and you can't ever improve what you do. And this is true, frankly, in the US, but it's even more true in resource-constrained settings where we don't have all the types of things we might have in a high-income country. And yet we've managed, we know, to provide care well. In my work in Rwanda, we have been able to prospectively keep important data. We bring that data together, we publish that data. It's really an imperative to providing safe and effective care. And I really think that is more true now than ever before.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Milner and Dr. Dugan, who are both leading the efforts for CIRGO. And now we'll move into our next presentation, which will be delivered by Dr. Nestori Masalu, who is a medical oncologist at Bugando Medical Center in Tanzania. And today he'll be focusing on target therapy in the treatment of lung cancer. Dr. Masalu, we welcome you.
Good morning, good evening, everybody. I've been introduced already, so next slide. I'll be talking about the target therapy in Tanzania. And as Pangsiri said, 2 years ago, under BMSF, the MLCCP project was launched in the 4 countries, and the objectives were actually to, one, try to establish the burden and the epidemiological distribution of the lung cancer, and create an effective referral mechanism to diagnosis and treatment, and try to establish biobanking collectively in those countries, because we were biopsying the the lung cancers. Next. Next. So we knew that those countries had different capacities in oncology services, and therefore the scope of activities within those countries differed. Some had oncology services to the level of treatment, some did not have. So the first thing was to do a knowledge attitude practice among the community in those countries. And then we trained health facility workers and community workers in those countries so that we can enter into the community straightforward. And then we developed SOPs for biopsy and CT guidance biopsy in those countries so that we can have a biobanking, tissue diagnosis, and treatment guideline for the lung cancers using the NCCN and the ESMO, the minimal treatment that we could offer, actually. Next. Historically, majority of those countries in the past 5 years before this project was launched, they saw less than 50 lung cancers in 5 years. So it's around maybe 10 lung cancers per year. But in this project, we reported an average of 120 to 184 cases of lung cancers only in 2 years. And all major types of lung cancers, histologically, were actually present. And in some areas where Pangisile is today, in Kimberley, mesothelioma was actually very evident, and this is due to the occupations there. The tissue biopsies were taken and stored in each country. We could not have a collective tissue biopsy repository. And in some areas, surprising, up to 25% of lung cancers has prior TB treatment up to third line. And they were reported failures on TB treatment. Next. In Tanzania now, we saw 124 patients of lung cancer. None had stage 1. 2 had stage 2. 47 had stage 3, and 75 had stage 4. Lung cancer is fatal everywhere, very fatal. And the 42 patients died before actually completing 3 lines of treatment, which we used the NCCN cisplatin, gem for non-small, and cisplatin or carboplatin, etoposide for small cell. So after evaluation of 3 cycles of treatment, we remained with only 82 patients because 42 died. Next. When we evaluated the responses of the patient that we had, the 82, 45 had a progressive disease. Only 37 had some responses, complete, partial, or stable. So we said we cannot leave this with progressive disease. We cannot leave them to die. And when we evaluated further, we found that 36 has non-small cell lung cancers, majority of them adenocarcinoma, and 9 had small cell lung cancer. So we said we go into project 2 and we evaluate the molecular characteristics of these 45. Next. When we evaluated the molecular characteristics of these 45, actually 22 showed us some target molecular typing, EGFR, ALK, BRAF, ROS, CAS. As I've said, majority of them were adenocarcinoma. Next. And then when we evaluated the 9 with small cell lung cancers, we found the targets among 5 of the 9. So this one, we convinced BMSF that we cannot leave the 45 to die at home. We need to go further, and that is the essence of Project 2. And we thank BMSF very much, because otherwise this patient would have died. And again, BMSF, through this sponsorship, we're able to convince the institutional governance, and we are now able to do the molecular testing at our institute, and the molecular lab has been constructed. Again, BMSF, ESMO, and the Society of Immunotherapy played a big role in training, because when we were doing this testing, we were actually preparing for target therapy administration together with immunotherapy prior to the testing itself. Next. So immediately, ESMO gave us medication. As you can see, whatever the target we found, we had the medication for it. And actually, 27 or 45% patients are on target therapy now, as you can see the medications. Next. So, of the 82 patients whom we tested, 37 did not test for molecular characteristics. Those ones failed on first line, and we are now continuing with them on second line chemotherapy, that is the taxanes. While 27 are on target therapy, and majority of them currently are on their fourth cycle as per ESMO, and we will evaluate them. Of course, among the 37 that we had in the second line of taxane, some have died, about 5, so we have 32. But among the 27 on target therapy, none has died, and we are continuing. Among the 18 patients who were negative for molecular testing, they are on their 5th cycles of chemotherapy. Next. We are moving into Project 3. We understand the power of target therapy in these patients, so that we don't give people chemotherapy that they don't need. We want, one, to cut off the 25% of patients who received anti-TB and came to us. So we will link the TB clinics with us. And once you are gene expert negative, you will come to us. Those who are gene expert negative, they will be biopsied. Those who will be positive for biopsy, then we will test for histology and the molecular testing upfront for those who will need molecular testing. Those who will be molecular test positive, we will route them into their molecular treatment. And those who will be negative but lung cancers, we will treat them depending on their histology. So that the plan here is not to lose anybody. Whoever will be gene expert negative, but also lung cancer negative on biopsy, will continue with the TB project. Whoever will be positive for lung cancer then will follow whatever we have. And the emphasis here is upfront molecular testing is important for those who will test positive. Next. What we have learned is lung cancer is present in Sub-Saharan Africa. You remember the story that Pangisile said when she came first, and we said, no, I think we don't have lung cancers. They were mixed with TB probably, or there was underdiagnosis, or it was known a disease of patients who cough blood and die at home, and they need to go to traditional healers. The risks of lung cancer are increasing as in developed countries. In the course of these projects, lung cancer are seen and now presently early. In fact, we have stage migration currently. We have seen 60 patients of lung cancer only last year, and the majority of them are coming with stage 1, 2. So we expect that this disease will be curable later on, or we will improve the cure rate as in developed countries. Probably we need to study more about molecular characteristics of lung cancer, because these are the first information that we have on the molecular features of lung cancer in Sub-Saharan Africa. Of course, we need to link the TB clinics with oncology units. Tanzania has decided this, and we have mobile units that are going in the community. Once they are negative for gene expert, they send to us before starting other endeavor for TB. The collaboration led by BMSF played a very big role for us, and now the government has entered in. We have treatment for first line, second line. We have the molecular lab, and we are set to go upfront molecular target. Next and last, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Masalu, for sharing the impactful work that's being done at your institution, and furthermore, what next steps and your learnings have also been. So up next, we have Dr. Uta Dugan, who is the Chief Medical Officer at the Parker Institute for Cancer Immunotherapy. Dr. Dugan will be presenting on the Innovative Cancer Medicines Initiative demonstration projects in Uganda as well as Nigeria. Dr. Dugan, we welcome you.
Yes, thank you. Welcome, everybody. And what an honor to be with you and present on behalf of the Innovative Cancer Medicine Initiative, which the Parker Institute for Cancer Immunotherapy, as Natanya mentioned, our founder, Sean Parker, the Clinton Health Access Initiative, Equity Initiative, CHAI, and Roche and Bristol Myers Squibb started in 2019. And the next slide. Yep, this is, and so I wanted to point out that the partnership included right from the beginning 7 countries in Africa: Nigeria, Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia, Rwanda, Tanzania, and South Africa, as well as India and Vietnam. We have all come together with the goal to build cancer care capacity and enable the appropriate infrastructure and health systems within countries to introduce innovative cancer medicines, such as immunotherapy, to hospitals, physicians, and patients. And a few words about cancer immunotherapy. So if you think, the next slide, if you think about the standards of care, surgery, radiotherapy, and chemotherapy, as well as I include targeted therapy, all those standards we have established over the last decades are still facing serious access constraints in many regions globally. And when it comes to cancer immunotherapy, it's simply not available still in many regions. However, if you think about cancer immunotherapy, checkpoint inhibitors like atezolizumab, nivolumab, pembrolizumab, and ipilimumab, these checkpoint inhibitors may be better suited to address the complexity of cancer biology than actually the conventional cancer treatments by mobilizing the body's own immune system to fight the cancer. Indeed, the possibility for long-term cancer remissions has improved over the last 10 years for melanoma, renal cell carcinoma, certain types of lung, colorectal, and breast cancers, since the checkpoint inhibitors have been first approved by health authorities in the United States and Europe. So what we have learned is that in order to harness the best effect of a new therapy, we need to engage in training of healthcare providers, health systems, introduce safety management protocols, and include the patient and their families into the training, enable them to stay vigilant regarding side effects and measures to take in between treatment cycles. The next slide. Here are the 3 countries we are currently working with. In Nigeria, I start in the center. We are working with Dr. Bello at the National Hospital Abuja. And the indication we are targeting here for a demonstration project with nivolumab is MSI-high colorectal cancer. It's the 4th highest incidence in the country, cancer incidence in the country, with very limited treatment options and a mortality rate of about 62%. Another demonstration project we are going to kick off in Uganda and working with the Uganda Cancer Center is in metastatic breast cancer, triple negative, and HER2 positive breast cancer. Breast cancer has the 3rd highest incidence of cancer nationally, and a mortality rate is about 52%. And thirdly, last but not least, we are arranging for and aiming for a program in lung cancer with nivolumab as the immunotherapy in Kenya. The next slide. The timetable for the demonstration project's rollout is actually outlined here, and we are aiming to, here the green arrow indicates where we are right now. We are aiming to achieve first patient, first visit for Uganda and Nigeria projects as early as possible in 2022, and therefore planning to report the results in 2023. And the next slide. The demonstration projects in collaboration with the Parker Institute, Clinton Health Access Initiative, Roche, and BMS in Uganda and Nigeria, they aim to demonstrate feasibility and safe usage of novel cancer medicines in resource-limited settings. Goal is to enable the countries to plan and advocate for longer-term improvement of their cancer care capacity, including innovative cancer medicines such as immunotherapy. In our demonstration projects, we are focusing on nivolumab and nab-paclitaxel from BMS and trastuzumab and atezolizumab from Roche. So with the second track, actually, we are also aiming to address access challenges which remain even after a drug is approved locally in the respective country. And then to sum it up, my brief, I remember vividly the inspiring workshop we had now exactly 2 years ago. And Pangasile and I were chairing the session at the IOTIC conference in Mozambique. And we need to remind ourselves every day that our goals are achievable. They are achievable if we collaborate and work together. Patients worldwide need to have access to quality cancer care for treatable and preventable cancers. With demonstration projects like the ones I was just talking about and alluding to today, we are strengthening in-country capacity for all aspects of cancer care. So, and therefore, to the left, you see all the organizations, countries, and industry partners who have participated in the workshop 2 years ago, live in Mozambique. And I want to say a big thank you to all organizations, countries, and industry partners who have joined collaborative efforts and are committed to cancer patients globally. Let's continue this work. Thank you, everybody.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Dugan, for walking us through the ICM initiative and pointing out the potential of such work and how it can positively influence patients in low and middle income settings. So next, we will have Ms. Lana Saeed from the World Health Organization deliver a presentation focused on the WHO and the Bristol-Myers Squibb Foundation initiative on integrative care on chronic lung conditions and TB at a community level. Ms. Saeed, we welcome you.
Thank you, Natanya, and greetings, everyone. So as I was introduced, my name is Lana Sayed, and I work for the Global Tuberculosis Program of the World Health Organization headquarters. Next slide, please. So I'll be talking about WHO partnership with the BMSF, particularly on integrating community-based tuberculosis care with chronic respiratory diseases. And to start off, our collaboration and partnership with the BMSF started as early as 2011, where we jointly developed what is a WHO-branded Engage TB approach, which looks into TB as the entry point at the community level and looks into how TB can be integrated into different sectors in order to have more sustainable service delivery and care. So Engage TB approach, just a few sentences about that, basically aims also to strengthen close collaboration between national TB programs and community actors in the whole programmatic cycle, including planning, supervision, and monitoring and evaluation, and puts really emphasis on core indicators at the global level to both at the country, regional, and the national and global levels to be able to track really how well these programs are performing. So going to the more recent past, in 2017, we started off a new phase of the collaboration, looking into how to integrate community-based TB activities with chronic respiratory diseases based on the Engage TB approach. This initiative had several components, which I'll talk you through in a second, but basically we looked into how to develop models of care for the community health workers who use cough as the presenting symptoms and refer clients for subsequent diagnosis examination. We also looked into the global evidence and ways and means to boost global research to strengthen the evidence based on the linkages between TB and chronic lung conditions, with emphasis also on lung cancer. And we've supported and we still support demonstration projects in 4 countries in the African regions: Lesotho, Eswatini, Tanzania, and Zimbabwe. Next slide, please. So the process started in 2017 and it entailed 2 big stakeholder and expert consultations, which were instrumental for producing a symptomatic referral chart for community health workers, which use, as I mentioned, chronic cough as a key symptom. What was also provided and developed was routine indicators, as well as the guidance for special evaluations looking at the effectiveness of these initiatives, and recording and reporting tools for community health workers. In the following year, in 2018, these were compiled into a toolkit which was aimed at guiding and facilitating field testing in the 4 demonstration countries, and along with the generic training manual for community health workers and facility staff. In the same year, we conducted systematic literature review, which showed very poor evidence on programmatic co-management on TB and chronic lung conditions. And these body of evidence, as well as the initial results from demonstration projects fed into the new WHO Global Research Agenda published just recently, and a number of normative products on WHO on integrated care.
Next one, please. So this is to give you a snapshot of what demonstration countries have been doing. In all 4 countries, Eswatini, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, and Lesotho, the project was started with stakeholder consultations to look into the global tools that were developed and to look into what, in terms of national context, makes more sense as the demonstration sites. So you will see here in the catchment area, the second line, that the approaches are very different in the 4 countries. Eswatini opted for a countrywide implementation and training of more than 600 community health workers on integrated TB and chronic lung diseases care, whereas in other countries, mostly it was a more targeted approach to look into a number of districts which were pre-selected according to the national criteria. A number of challenges and good practices have been coming up. I think lesson learned number 1 is that effective referral can be challenging when the community-based service delivery is used as the entry point and points to the need for strong programmatic collaboration at the level of the health systems between non-communicable diseases and communicable diseases programs. And there's a number of opportunities for strengthening there. Of course, the operations in the demonstration countries have been unfortunately negatively affected by COVID-19, but there are also a number of opportunities and lessons learned in terms of what has been the added value of this initiative and how well community health workers have been able to perform thanks to the trainings that they received to the project. But this was just to give you a taste of what these demonstration projects look like. Next slide, please. So very briefly, some of the emerging themes. I think tailored special evaluations will be needed to really document the diversity of different directions that the 4 countries have taken, both in terms of more qualitative angles of what have been the factors of success, what are the programmatic lessons learned, opportunities and challenges, and what has been the impact and added value. A number of innovative and good practices have emerged. Particularly in Tanzania, the program has leveraged on the social protection scheme through the local authorities to waive the cost of the X-ray and additional diagnoses that need to take place for the persons who were, for the clients who were identified with lung symptoms. And this has been really added value in terms of ensuring human rights and the universal health coverage. In some other countries, such as Eswatini is extremely advanced in geospatial mapping of both clients and services, which was instrumental to have excellent, evidence-based for the successes and lessons learned of the integration, particularly of tuberculosis and chronic lung conditions. And also, as I mentioned, there is an evidence of increased knowledge and skills and better performance of community programs overall, which are supervised by the governments of some of the project countries, which was shown during the COVID-19 period. Of course, just a couple of points about the negative effect of COVID-19. In all of the countries, there have been very grave disruptions of services and program operations. A lot of the funds and funds, infrastructures, and diagnosis available have been fully or partially reprogrammed to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. And for clients under this initiative, they will focus on clients with cough as the presenting symptoms. This both the health system and, more importantly, the clients have faced a lot of stigma and challenges, both geographic and social, of accessing services during the period. The community health workers, finally, training and the provision of personal protective equipment has been uneven. So next, and I believe last slide, please. Next. Next one, please. There was one more slide. Okay, I'll talk you through the last slide, no problem.
I think we have a technical problem. Thank you.
No problem at all. So my last slide just talks about what do we do now. So we had an extension of the period that we agreed on with BMSF and countries for the implementation of activities due to the challenges linked to COVID. So we are currently in the last year of the project, and in a few weeks from now, we are convening a stakeholder consultation, which will aim to share experiences, challenges, and lessons learned from the implementing countries. It will also aim to identify and document good practices from the initiative and plans of how they will contribute to the relevant WHO guidelines, toolkits, and other normative products. And we will also be keen to engage with the stakeholders and experts to update them on the synergistic WHO work at the global level and how this work can and will be informed by this initiative. So looking ahead, the last point, from next year onwards, WHO plans to mainstream the lessons learned from this initiative into its normative guidance, and will keep promoting and supporting countries in stronger integration of services. Thank you very much for listening. Over.
Thank you very much, Lana. Thank you for holding it together. And I'm sure we all know in South Africa, we were just hit by load shedding, but it came at the right time because that was the last slide. And thank you very much, Lana. I believe at this stage, Natanya, we are ready for questions from the audience. So if the organizers can please help us with the questions that have come through.
Yeah, and as we're preparing that, I just wanted to bring around some learning, certainly from all of the presenters today, that we're sharing updates around their programs, next steps. And really the common theme across the board is really around multi-sector collaboration. At the end of the day, each of you have optimized or improved your programs because of working with each other. So that is certainly commendable, and certainly something that's a recurring theme throughout your presentations, and certainly something we'd want to pass forward. My first question would be to Uta, as we're getting through questions from the audience in particular. In reference to the Innovative Cancer Medicine Partnership, it's really unique, the partnership between industry and then these nonprofit organizations such as PICE and CHAI. Can you share with us exactly how it came about that this partnership started and how it was that these particular indications have come into play specifically for the countries?
Yeah, thank you, Natanya. I think it's a good way to look back and see also what are the learnings we can generate from this. So the whole initiative started with our founder of the Parker Institute, Sean Parker, actually participating in the Nelson Mandela event, the 100th birthday of Nelson Mandela in Johannesburg, and really preparing this announcement with working with Bristol Myers Squibb, with Roche, with CHAI, and trying to create a coalition in between those partners from various multiple sectors, essentially, all with a common goal to support bringing immunotherapies to global regions of this world who don't have access right now because of the promising prospect of cancer immunotherapy. There was a mandate for us to, as the Parker Institute is focused on immunotherapy, to make sure that we not only work with the best in the field to improve treatments ever so after, but really make sure that patients who need them have access to those improved cancer treatments. So, and of course, along the way, we had to learn a lot. And I, as I mentioned in my, we can work challenges out, and we will get a lot of challenges on our way for any collaboration. We need to understand where the various partners are coming from and create win-win solutions to drive a project forward. So we had to understand over the last 2 years what are the needs of the pharma partners, because they are important. Roche and BMS are important to help us bringing the medicines to the countries. Without them, we will not be able to. But there are rules we have to adhere to, and we found solutions, and with resilience of all partners in working together, we create the solutions for patients in order to make it happen. That's probably my summary of what happens in the past, but looking forward, we need to upkeep the energy, the collaborative spirit, to continue to be willing to understand each other for the benefit of cancer patients globally. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Dugan. I appreciate that. Okay, so for Dr. Nestri, in reference to your partnership, you highlighted activities that have happened with the Bristol Myers Squibb Foundation, as well as ESMO and SITC. Can you talk through that partnership and what you're looking for in reference to next steps? Because you did highlight that moving forward, both ESMO and SITC will be certainly important as your program continues into the next phase.
I said that the first culprit to me and the lesson I learned was when I had those 45 patients with me, and they were about to be sent. And when I convinced BMSF Pangisire to do the testing, the molecular testing, and the testing was very expensive. And when she agreed, then I had the next culprit. Where do I get medications? Immediately, I went to ESMO to get medications. When I got the medications, then UTE immediately organized a seed meeting, and we were talking about immunotherapy and the training of the staffing. So that is when I realized the importance of collaboration. So BMSF assisted me, ESMO came in, and then SEED came in for the training purposes. Actually, it helped us a lot because these patients are now receiving medications and none has died of those who are receiving the target therapy. Moving forward, those were the patients who needed treatment. So moving forward are the patients themselves in the community. How do we involve others? One is the government. So the next stakeholder is the government. Thank you to the government. They were able to have the molecular lab for us. The training is ongoing into various regions, not the one that we serve with the BMSF, but other regions surrounding us. And we are receiving most of the lung patients as a referral hospital in this country. And then the other one is the other programs which are ongoing, which are close to us, and that is the National TB and Leprosy Program. So moving forward, for me, I think a collaborative meeting nationally within the Tanzanian is important, and that is organized in December. That's every stakeholder will join. 2, all cancer facilities now should follow what we have seen, that we need to test lung cancers and test molecular testing upfront, so that those who will need molecular testing, but those who will need molecular treatment get their molecular treatment, and those who will need conventional treatment get their conventional medication. The government has agreed to offer the first line and second line for conventional treatment. We are looking for ESMO. ESMO has said just project the amount of molecular treatment that you will need for the next 5 years. They will provide that one. I will come again to Pankisire for the testing, and I think she will agree. So those are the way forwards that we are seeing.
Thank you very much, Dr. Masalu. I appreciate that. So in the interest of time, I do have one additional question for Lana. So as you're working through your current chronic lung conditions program, one of the areas in which you mentioned was around policy development and how important it is. But in your situation, you are working across multiple countries, synonymous to how the MLCCP program is as well. So I'm curious of the hurdles that you experienced there, especially considering the variance or the varying degrees of expertise and the varying degrees of where increased infrastructure improvement, et cetera, have to happen in order for these policies to be more global or more tailored to the specific country, the type of hurdles that you've experienced to date.
Okay, thanks for that. I think, you know, the countries are very different. So one thing is, which is for sure a global fact, is that tuberculosis programs in countries are vertical programs. So it is for a tuberculosis program not as easy to find out a counterpart in non-communicable disease program, for example, especially at the service delivery level. So at the service delivery level, most clinics, like primary healthcare posts, clinics, different care facilities will have a designated TB staff. So one of the issues has definitely been when this initiative starts really at the community level, how can the two programs, non-communicable diseases and tuberculosis, work together at all levels in order for this, you know, from the client perspective, for the referrals and the care to work well, so that the initiative objectives are met. So the objective really has been to reduce this delay for clients floating in the health system, knowing simply that they cough and expecting the health system to provide better care. So definitely one of the issues is programmatic collaboration at the Ministry of Health level, which is absolutely a must for this to work well. And then another issue has been, you know, for any program to work, these referrals need to be very clear for everyone who is involved. So this has been something not only that had to be developed from scratch in most of the project sites of both community health workers and the staff at all levels of the system need to know where they can find services linked to a number of other chronic lung conditions, including cancer, so asthma, COPD, and cancer suspects, and so on. So referral has been a challenge, programmatic collaboration has been a challenge, and also the availability of equipment. So as we heard, I think from Dr. Nestori, you know, some of these more complex examinations are available 300 kilometers away from where a person lives. So how it's very unethical to find a client who needs subsequent examination and not being able to support him or her to get to those examinations. So finding out ways and means to actually accompany people to where the further diagnosis is available has been something of a challenge, which the project did manage to address because it was small scale. But I think these are the big questions for the ministries as they go forward and try to systematize and make these integrated models of care part of their routine services. I hope this helps. Thanks.
Yes, very much. Thank you very much, everyone, for your participation, your presentations, and all of the work that you're doing to advance care for patients in low and middle income countries. And now I will pass it on to Dr. Dan Milner.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much to BMS, to Natanya, and to Pangasili for organizing this session. Really special thanks to Uta, Dr. Saeed, and Dr. Nestri for their presentations, really excellent work. And thanks to our Sergo collaborators for the video they presented. I just want to take you home with a couple of points that I think have been reiterated by everyone's presentations and in the questions and answer session. The first is that lung cancer is out there, right? There's a lot of lung cancer in Africa. There's no reason for us to expect them not to have similar rates to what we see in the US, especially in smoking populations. And as our populations age, that's going to increase. And so the big challenge is finding them. And with cancer, screening is important. We have ways to screen for lung cancer, but the most important thing is that education and knowledge needs to permeate to the primary care level, to the patient level, for them to be aware that screening exists so that they can present, as Dr. Nestri really reiterated, as early as possible so that these treatments are maximized. The second point I wanted to make is that we can treat these patients. I mean, Dr. Schulman's comments, Uta's comments, Nestri's comments about once you find a patient and get them diagnosed and get them on these targeted therapies, they can be treated and they can survive. And that has been a big problem for the last 2 decades in Africa, where people just assume everyone with cancer is going to die. That's just not true anymore. That stigma needs to be removed. And we need to continue to demonstrate that patients that are on these therapies, that are the correct therapies for them, match their diagnoses, et cetera, are going to survive and are going to improve. And the last and probably the most important point I want to share with you is coming from Dr. Saeed's comments about there's infrastructure there. We've done 20 years of HIV work. We've done 20 years of TB work. We've been treating malaria. We've been treating all kinds of disease. We've been deworming children. There's all kinds of infrastructure out there in Africa that were largely vertical programs, but how we can take those existing structures and piggyback onto that care for these patients is really crucial. And I point to, for example, in Uganda, the work of Susan Ndabe at the Central Public Health Laboratory, where she took their network of 120 laboratories across the country and taught them how to take histology samples and properly prepare them. So now they can get histology samples from anywhere in Uganda to the Central Public Health Lab for diagnosis. And that was on the backbone of an HIV network. So we really have to look at these existing vertical programs and not say, oh yeah, that's a vertical program. What we have to say is, how can we collaborate? How do we enhance that program and piggyback off of it to add just one more thing, which is going to massively improve services for these patients? Mm-hmm. Again, cancer is a major challenge in Africa, primarily from mortality, primarily from late stage disease. You know, Dr. Nestri is providing us with hope, showing he's already seeing downstaging in lung cancer, which I wasn't even sure I would hear that data today. I was very excited to hear that. So I think overall, what we need to realize is that we have to find the patients, we have to get them diagnosed correctly, and we have to put them on the therapies that will cure them, and we will defeat cancer in Africa. So again, thank you to Natanya and Pangasili for organizing this session. Thank you to Aortic for allowing us to have it, and to all of our speakers. And I will turn it over to Pangasili and Natanya to close.
Well, with 1 minute left, thank you very much to our panelists. Thanks to Aortic, and thanks to the technical team that has carried us through. The message is clear, the work is done. Collaboration is the key that holds it together. With that, we thank you. Natanya.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the speakers for showing us how you strengthen capacity through collaboration, education, and training, and how you can actually have access to prohibitively expensive drugs to manage your patients. So let's hope in the future the next step would be to make molecular analysis, next generation sequencing, and access to expensive drugs like checkpoint inhibitors to be able to actually make that accessible to us, and so that we can actually also take cancer forward and be able to treat our patients the way you've been doing very admirably, Dr. Masalo. Anyway, thank you very much for the session, and we'll move on now to our next